This is Paul Schneiderman today on the 27th edition of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio. Today, as my special guest, I am joined by Seattle broadcast journalist and reporter Chris Daniels. This will only be a 20-minute interview today, probably, so we're going to try to get a lot of topics in, Chris, and kind of keep things moving. A little quick background here. Chris Daniels is a longtime broadcaster at Seattle's King 5 Television. King 5 is a Seattle NBC affiliate. Chris has covered many stories and award-winning journalists. And Chris is very well known for covering the arena story, so I will certainly dive into the arena story a little bit with you, Chris. Chris was born and raised in University Place, Washington, near Tacoma. He attended Washington State University. Chris lives in Seattle, married with a daughter. Chris, thank you for coming on Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Paul, thanks for having me. It's good to talk to you as always.
Likewise, Chris. I've enjoyed getting to know you over the years, and we'll try to cram in a quick interview here and hopefully get you back one day. We can talk a little more later. Chris, I just noticed you were back in Washington, D.C. with Chuck Todd, the Meet the Press host. What were you doing in Washington, D.C., hanging out with Chuck Todd, Chris?
Yeah, we're ramping up for the midterm elections and sat down with Chuck Todd from NBC and Meet the Press, and we're airing those interviews now. But yeah, just talking about the midterms, and you know, it's been a crazy news cycle, as you know, with politics, and I don't think it's going to be any different over the next few months. And so yeah, we look forward to rolling that out here in the next several days.
I mean, there's no rumor you're going to be taking over Chuck Todd's job, is there, Chris?
No.
Gotcha.
Not at all.
Gotcha. Chris, I think the listeners will find your answer to this question interesting. How did you get interested in broadcasting as a young person growing up?
Well, that's a great question. I could take you back to the high school days, growing up in University Place, but I had a counselor back in high school who said, you know, you have this place, and have you ever thought about doing something with radio or television? And I hadn't really considered it until that time, growing up in University Place, and decided to say, oh, okay, I'll take the advice and give it a shot, and went to Clover Park Vocational Technical Institute and took a radio class while I was still in high school to broadcast play-by-play at the local high schools there, and try to boil down a long story, use those tapes to introduce myself to KSTW and Rod Simons down in Tacoma. Rest in peace, Rod. And he took me in, and I started doing TV stuff in high school as an intern, and going out and covering the Sonics and the Seahawks and that kind of thing while I was still in high school, and use that video and that audio to get the attention of some people at Washington State University, and that's what led me there, and continued on through college and radio and television, and thought I was going to dive into sports and sports television in Boise, Idaho, and lo and behold, somebody called me up when I was about to leave for that internship and said, hey, how would you like to do news? There just happened to be a flood while I was in college where I was able to get some tape in the Moscow, Pullman area, and sent that off to a couple of people. And lo and behold, it made an impression, and I ended up in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and didn't think I'd be here more than 20 years later still covering news and sports, but here I am.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting how that all came about, but that's what set me on the path.
Neat background, Chris. I don't think a lot of people knew, including myself, that you started as a journalist while in high school. Really cool. Well, Chris, we're going to cram some stuff in here. We don't have a lot of time. And I want to ask you right now about the media climate going on right now. We have a president who refers to the media as the enemy of the people. I just saw a poll today that 43% of all Republicans believe that Trump should be able to shut down news outlets. Chris, you're a working, practicing journalist in a large market. Are you alarmed at all by these threats to journalists and a free press?
I think it's concerning that the press has been labeled the enemy. And I know that not everybody feels that way, and I also know, and I'm happy to report that the there is a difference between national news coverage and local news coverage in terms of perceptions and polling, and local news is still widely respected based on polling data, that people still have a lot of belief in local media versus national coverage. There is a huge divide there on some of the data that I've seen. So I take that to heart, that people still have faith and belief in the Seattle Times and King 5 and my colleagues in radio and independent journalists. I think on a local level, we do a lot of things that are done right and done well and void of personal opinion and what journalism was founded on. And I believe that there are a lot of people doing good work on a local level, and it's different than what you've seen, and frankly, on the cable outlets, the 24/7 cable outlets. I think that's where a lot of the distrust comes from, whether it be Fox, MSNBC, or CNN. I think, that's why there's been some confidence eroded. But I think on the local level that people still have a lot of confidence in television news and online.
Chris, your distinctions are interesting in perceptions between local and national news coverage. That's interesting points you brought up. This is Paul Schneiderman of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with award-winning Seattle 5, King 5 reporter Chris Daniels. Chris, I want to hit, for the most of the rest of this interview now, on the arena issue. And you followed the Sonics relocation. You covered it. I got to know you back in those 2007, 2008 days. And you had a very interesting exchange with the former commissioner of the NBA, David Stern. Your exchange with Stern was featured in the Sonics Gate documentary. You challenged Stern at a New York City press conference on the Key Arena plan, whether Stern was aware of all the emails between the Oklahoma ownership group, which highly suggested they never wanted to keep the Sonics in Seattle. Stern gave you, I should say, Chris, a very non-friendly, non-answer. Was this exchange with Stern, Chris, among the most interesting exchanges you've had in your years as a broadcast journalist? Would you put that up there, number one or two?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the fact that we're still talking about it now puts it up there, and it's memorable for a lot of different reasons. One, I didn't know that was broadcast live to every radio and TV outlet in Seattle. I mean, we were in the basement of the St. Regis Hotel, and that's before Twitter and Facebook exploded, and before instant messaging exploded. I mean, I was really in a hole at that point from the rest of the world, and had no idea and no pretense to go in there and have that kind of confrontation. I mean, if you go back and watch the video from 2008, I thought those questions were pretty non-confrontational.
I would agree.
Basic. He didn't want to talk about that at that point in time. It was supposed to be a celebration of Oklahoma City, so I think that's why it went the way it did. But yeah, I mean, I still, to this day, have people that want to talk to me about that press conference, and still bring up the fact that I stood up for Seattle. It definitely kind of changed the course on the arena story, and I think that's one of the reasons why so many people have followed me over the years on that story, is that press conference back in 2008.
I thought your questions,
10 years.
I thought your questions, Chris, were totally legitimate, and I thought Stern's response, kind of the snarky response, was sort of indicative of the whole issue. And I know we've talked about it briefly a little bit off the air, but I appreciate your elaboration on that interesting exchange you had with Dave Stern. This is Paul Schneiderman, host of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with Chris Daniels of Seattle's King 5 TV. All right, Chris, we're not going to be able to get everything on the arena issue today, but a lot has happened since the Sonics left in 2008. As you and I know, and we all know, Chris Hansen's group have been trying to build a Sodor Arena since about 2012. In 2016, Chris, the city council, on a 5-4 vote, denied Chris Hansen's group a street vacation. In the aftermath of the vote, there were some who expressed sexist and misogynistic comments to the 5 Seattle City female council members who voted no on the street vacation vote in a 5-4 vote. Chris, give me your take on this. And obviously, the sexist and misogynistic comments were reprehensible. But do you think the media and the 5 city council members kind of blew that whole situation out of proportion, the alleged sexism? I mean, just because a couple jerks expressed those comments, it seemed like it was almost to make all sports fans feel guilty. Give me your take on how the media covered that and the city council's reaction.
Wow. I would say out of the gate, I do not think that was overblown. I think that there were legitimate concerns from the council members about the reaction that I think nobody saw coming on social media and email. I think at the time, I was not surprised that the story took another surprise twist that day when it went down 5-4, when the street vacation went down 5-4. The fact that it came down to Lorena Gonzalez, who at that time was pretty new to the council and by all indications changed her vote at the last minute. I mean, that's just par for the course with this story. But the backlash, I don't think anybody saw coming. And, my thought in those 72 hours, especially after the vote, was the city's never going to build an arena.
Chris, you would agree, though.
Chris, poisoned the well.
Chris, you would agree, though, that sports fans shouldn't feel collective guilt because of the reprehensible behavior of a very small minority, though.
That sports fans shouldn't feel collective guilt?
It seemed like when that story came out, Chris, that a lot of sports fans were lumped in with that very fringe minority that made sexist and misogynistic comments. Maybe I'm off base in perceiving it that way, but it just seemed that the situation was getting almost leverage based on that to some extent. But I guess maybe you saw it a little differently and you covered it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it a little bit differently. I mean, there was so much build up to that vote, and there was the eruption of emotion after.
Yeah.
That fairly or unfairly kind of colored the sports fan and the people that had so wanted that street vacation vote. Like I said, I was surprised at the backlash to the council members, and I was also surprised that within 6 to 9 months there was talk again about an arena.
Right.
I really thought that was the nail in the coffin for any sort of new facility in Seattle at that point, just based on the backlash and knowing Seattle politics. So I'm surprised that to a certain extent that here we are in 2018 talking about a $700 million building that looks like it's going to be approved.
Well, you gave some interesting perspectives there, Chris, and it certainly made, I think, me and some listeners think as well that reaction could have completely put the arena, I guess, into the coffin completely. So that's an interesting reaction. Well, Chris, we have a proposal by OVG, the city council's proposed that are supporting, I should say, the Lewicki brothers are part of, and the NHL has accepted a formal expansion application. Chris, to sum up the Key Arena proposal, give me an answer to this question. Would you agree it's likely really good news for NHL fans in Seattle who want an NHL team? But it's a little unclear if the Key Arena remodel plan is such great news for people who want an NBA team in Seattle. Is that a bad way of summing up? Good for the NHL, maybe not as good for the NBA?
I mean, I would say pretty close to that. I mean, the fact that NHL fans are going to be likely rewarded more immediately than NBA fans, yes, that's completely accurate. We're looking at a vote in September. September 17th is what's been targeted for a final vote from the council on transaction documents. And then potentially the NHL awarding a franchise within a couple of weeks after that in late September, early October. So the NHL will satisfy the hunger probably for hockey fans sooner than the NBA. And I still think, and I keep believing that we're at least a few years away from the NBA thinking about expansion or relocation. So, yeah, I mean, for people who are dying for the Sonics to return, it could be a while. And yeah, it's completely murky on how this is all going to play out with the NBA here in the future in Seattle.
Chris, unless you can extend it out a few more minutes, we got about 5 minutes left right now. Paul Schneiderman, Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio.
We're good.
Oh, we're good. We got a few more minutes then?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so we can push this out maybe to about 12, maybe about for a 27-minute show. Good to hear. Chris, you did a story, or the Seattle Times did a story several weeks ago about a possible EIS challenge to Key Arena. Apparently there were some nearby homeowners or apartment owners in Lower Queen Anne that were considering some litigation. Well, any new reporting on that, Chris? Is there going to be any suits or anything involving a possible Key Arena challenge?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that we are waiting for the EIS to come back. The final EIS that looks right now like it's targeted for August 30th. By the end of this month, and that's when I think this question will pop up again. But right now, that all looks to be on target, on schedule. And if there is a legal challenge, that could potentially throw a wrench in this whole timeline with the September vote. But
sure.
At this point, I'm not hearing anything. I'm not seeing anything, but that is subject to change.
Yeah, that's when I saw that story break, Chris, I was saying, oh my gosh, we're going to get another challenge and go on for several more years. But it seems like based on
the thing I would point out, the thing I would point out is I know that there was some focus on Jack McCullough, who is the attorney, or his law firm, I should say, is representing the apartment owners. He also, his law firm represented Chris Hansen back in the day. So there has been insinuation in some parts that that somehow all interconnected. I should point out that Jack McCullough's law firm is also involved in the current conversation about saving the Showbox. He represents the company that wants to build in the Showbox spot. The point being, his law firm is the big land use law firm in Seattle. They're involved with a lot of things. He's been involved with a lot of projects in the past, and it just coincidence is not the right word, but it doesn't appear that there's any sort of connection at all with the Soto project and Chris Hansen. This is a matter of the big real estate company, the big law firm that handles land use, I should say, representing multiple people here in town.
Yeah, I know Jack McCullough, terrific attorney, and I know his firm got linked to that story, that somehow or another there was, some opposition maybe coming from linked to his firm to the Key Arena plan, but we'll have to see what happens there. So, Chris, there's some questions coming up if the Key Arena revenue stream could work for an NBA franchise in Seattle. Any thoughts on that, Chris?
I think the door is still open on that, and I know that there has been some thought that a second building that is an NBA-only building could work in Seattle, and I've heard those arguments, and I think there's some legitimacy to that argument. But at the same time, the fact that David Bonderman is involved in this project and is going to be the lead investor in the NHL franchise that would play at the new building, the Seattle Center, and the fact that he is already a minority owner of the NBA, I think, I'm no expert in all the math, but if he is bringing an NBA team to play in that building at some point in time, perhaps it pencils out better for him individually or his investment group than previously thought. But again, I haven't crunched all the numbers. I haven't done all the math, but I've heard the arguments on both sides. And, Bonderman's involved as a potential NBA owner, maybe it changes the conversation.
One thing I heard, Chris, on that subject of whether the revenue streams could justify an NBA team being in Seattle, I think this point came from one of the wikis the other day, which is an interesting point, is that, well, they may not have to pay the $800 million or so for the building. So maybe that could help cancel out some other expenses.
Right.
Chris,
I wonder with the huge amount of money that's being put up front, what the business model looks like down the road in terms of the return on the investment. Because Vonderman, Bruckheimer, OVG. There's Madison Square Garden Group. There's a lot of money up front to make this happen.
Right. Paul Schneiderman of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with my special guest, Chris Daniels, King 5 reporter. We got about 7 minutes left now. Thanks for staying a little longer, Chris.
Yeah.
Mayor Durkin, this is sort of, you brought this up, I think, a little indirectly, Chris, a minute ago, and Mayor Durkin has not completely ruled out the idea of the Soto Arena being revived. What do you see? I mean, you sort of mentioned a minute ago, but do you see any chance of the Soto Street Vacation being revived at all down the road?
Not immediately. I know that the group has been still working on the street vacation application. Jack Nicola's law firm has been working on the street vacation application. I just wonder. I just wonder if the council has an appetite to hear that at this point. After now discussing Seattle Center for so long and getting done with that, I have maintained all along that really having a team in hand changes the conversation. I think it's changed the conversation with Oakview. The fact that they're able to say we have an investor and we have interest from the National Hockey League, and the National Hockey League confirms that. I think that pushes the puck forward, to use the analogy, the hockey analogy, over at Seattle Center, because there is some emphasis from that league to put a team here by 2020. That helps the city move forward and not play the slow game on any sort of arena project. If there was an NBA team that said, hey, in 2 or 3 years we'd like to relocate to Seattle, kind of like Las Vegas and the Raiders, that would change the street vacation application. But going to the city again without a team in hand, I don't know how quickly the council would take that up.
Chris, you brought up some good points. And I think right now the OVG plan is less theoretical. The fact that the NHL has formally accepted an expansion application commitment. So I think your point is a good one there. Whether it's fair or unfair, I don't think Chris Hansen's gotten the same commitment from the NBA or NHL that OVG's gotten.
Right.
Chris, real quickly, I want to hit a couple more subjects. We have about 5 minutes left. Mention a couple of your broadcasting mentors. I mean, there's a late Walter Cronkite, Edward R. Murrow, Tom Brokaw. Anybody local? Can you mention 1 or 2 broadcasters that you've always looked up to a lot?
Who have I looked up to a lot? I've always appreciated people who have a variety of work, who have been able to cover news and sports. Brian Gumbel is one name that comes to mind, who's been very successful with Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. I've always appreciated journalists who have covered the sporting realm and been able to do that, whether it be at 60 Minutes. I'm thinking of Armin Katayan and others who have delved in. I love long-form storytelling. I love sports storytelling with journalistic background, and I've always appreciated that. I know how hard people work and how long it takes sometimes to get a project on a page or in a newspaper or on television, and some of that long-form work, and I just think of 30 for 30, Real Sports, E60, those kind of shows. I've always liked, and going further back in time. I mean, Rod Simons was a mentor for me at KFCW, and he recently passed away.
Very sad.
And a really good guy who made his mark here in Seattle, and then again made his mark in Minneapolis on a local television level. And I've been fortunate to work at King with a lot of good people. I mean, we have had some of the best journalists in the country here at King 5, and Dennis Bounds, Jean Anderson. Jean was the first woman to ever anchor a newscast in America.
Oh yeah,
I think people forget that. I work alongside to this day people like Glenn Farley and Alyssa Hahn, who are great journalists in their own right. I think TV journalism is not given the same respect sometimes as print journalism, but I think of Susanna Frame and Chris Ingles back in our investigators unit, who do work that has been given essentially the Pulitzer equivalent in television. I mean, winning national awards left and right. They've done it for years. So, I've been fortunate on a local level to work with a lot of talented people as well. And that's not even speaking to the photojournalists that we have here at King who have won national awards as well. So, it's been a pleasure to work so long, 18 years now total in Seattle, but, also to kind of follow in the footsteps of some of the people that I admire.
We brought up some great names, Chris. Real quickly, we got like maybe a minute and a half left. Give me a quick answer on this. And my next question for you is, what does the future hold for Chris Daniels? But I want you to answer this question first. Did you see this resistance that's starting to build to the Mariners' request for funding? Do you see any problems in the effort to make sure the Mariners stay in Seattle?
I don't see a problem right now with the Mariners staying in Seattle, but I don't think the executive's office or the Mariners really forecast the pushback, and there is pushback now. And the fact that Cole Wells has now taken her name off the legislation, I think is not a good sign for the Mariners, and it'll be interesting to see how this now plays out. I think they tried to drop the hammer in advance of that King County Council meeting by saying, if they don't get the money, they're just going to sign a 5-year lease extension. That was their way of trying to drop the hammer, and that didn't go over well.
Chris, we got about 30 seconds. We got about 30 seconds.
Most of the public comment was against it. Yeah, go ahead.
No, we got about 30 seconds. I'll get you back one day. I'll ask you some more questions about all these subjects. What does the future hold for Chris Daniels?
I'm still here at King 5, and you're going to see me hopefully finishing the arena story. And we have the election. We have the viaduct. There's a lot of big things coming up here in Seattle, and I'll be on top of it, I guess.
Chris, thanks for coming on. You and I will be in touch.
Thanks, man.